Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming tonight for what is for now going to be the finale of Friday Night Comics. I'm Kristen Radtke. I'm the art director of The Believer, and I've been the one in the chats and selecting you all during sharing for this past year and a half. So it's really exciting to be with you all here making a comic. I don't think any of us had any idea when we ran our first comics workshop that this would become a weekly thing, or that we'd welcome over 10,000 people who joined live and double that number of people who would watch the recording after the events. This has truly felt like a family during this really scary time. And I can't tell you what that means to me. So thank you. So in addition to, I'm the art director of The Believer, like I mentioned, and in addition to that, I make my own comics. And I have this book that's coming out next month called CQ, A Journey Through American Loneliness, which is, in addition to being a very uplifting topic, is something we've, I think, all experienced a lot this past year. And that's what we're going to be drawing about tonight. It's been a time we feel, I think, pretty disconnected, and we're going to draw about that. It doesn't have to be our experiences of loneliness. We don't have to talk about the pandemic in our comics if we don't want to. We can just kind of talk about any time that we felt alienated from our communities, and kind of what we did and how we worked to forge a connection again. So when I began this project on loneliness, I started by asking some of my friends a really simple question, which was, what's the loneliest you've ever felt? And I'm going to show you some of their answers to kind of give you an idea for what you might maybe will draw about tonight. So it could be something really simple, like one of my friends told me just Pittsburgh. And another friend said, well, I was pregnant and the year after I gave birth. Mother's Day, the year my grown children weren't talking to me. The bell rang and it was a flower delivery for the horrible woman next door. We left Iran when I was 8. We spent a year in Dubai and then were sent to a refugee hostel in Italy, where we stayed in the carcass of this old hotel. Some guy picked us up from the airport and he was very official looking. He only spoke Italian. He dropped us off at the top of this big winding hill at the hostel, where there was one room with one bed, and the three of us, my mom, my brother, and me, shared it. I remember that night we didn't have anything to eat and we were really, really worried. Once we arrived in America, there was another similar feeling of total disorientation. By that time I was 10. The first night we were sleeping in the attic of the people who sponsored us. Everything was different. The weather was different. It was very humid. I was hungry in the middle of the night and I didn't feel okay going down to get anything because it wasn't our kitchen and the food was all strange anyway. So I think this is a really beautiful example of that feeling, because it's rooting us not only in time and place, but in like a really specific memory, which is just like the food was different. So it's like, that's something really tangible. And this next example is very simple. I planned a birthday party in 7th grade. Only one person came. Living in Missoula, 6 or 7, sorry, there's some stuff in the way. Living in Missoula in the 6 or 7 months after college, I worked the night shift at a big downtown coffee house. The last thing I had to do one night was transfer a large gallon bag of vegetable soup from the crock next to the register to the fridge in the kitchen. When I lifted the bag out of the crock, the bag just sort of disintegrated and the soup went everywhere on the floor behind the counter. I got down on my knees and put the rag into a pool of soup to start cleaning, and I felt an electric kick go up my arms. Turns out the soup had gotten into an electrical outlet. It wasn't strong enough to actually hurt, so I just kept wiping the soup up and getting little shocks, and I knew when it was done, I'd have to walk home in the freezing cold and go to bed alone. So those are just like some examples, I think, of that kind of that specific thing I'm talking about, where it's just like a specific moment in time that sort of speaks to like a larger feeling of disconnection. So for our comics tonight, I want us to all think about a moment that we felt particularly lonely. It can be, maybe it was last week, maybe it's right now, maybe it was 10 years ago. It doesn't have to be like big and climactic. It can be something really mundane and small. And we're going to make a 3-panel comic on that. So I'm going to share my screen with you again. And you can make your panel structure any way you want. It can be like 3 in a row, like I've done here. You can do like them up and down. You can do them in different shapes, anything you want. Okay, so because I have stage fright and because I want to be able to chat with y'all while I'm drawing, I cheated and I did some sketches beforehand, and I'm gonna like sort of digitally ink from the sketches. So don't feel like you need to sort of have your comic as developed as mine, because I literally cheated and have an enormous head start. So in this first panel, we're going to set the scene for our lonely memory. Here, can you root us in space and time? What are the circumstances and how do you feel? Welcome everybody who's just joining. My amazing coworker Lily is going to put the prompt in the chat. In our first panel here, we're going to set the stage for a lonely experience we've had. And it doesn't have to be a specific moment. It could even just be like a whole general time frame. It could be a place that you were in that was particularly lonely. It could be your apartment during the pandemic. It could be anything. So I'm actually going to set the stage at the beginning of the pandemic. And I will say that the pandemic was not, we're going to take 5 minutes for this panel. I'm going to set the timer. 5 minutes starts now. So the pandemic for me was definitely not my loneliest time. It was lonely, but I felt also very connected to community because of Friday Night Comics. And so this comic is going to be sort of an appreciation for all of you, for folks who've joined every week and folks who've maybe even joined once, because we really built something here together. And I want to show my thanks for that. And if you have any questions in the chat, go ahead and drop them there, and my coworker Lily will read them to me. So you can either just do drawings or you can also include text. I'm going to include some text with mine. We're about halfway through our time.
Kristen, the people want to know, what do you like about working in Illustrator?
Um, the thing I like about working in Illustrator is that I'm used to it. I don't think it's necessarily the only program that one works with. I have a lot of friends who use Procreate. I've used it for so long that it's sort of like, it's the tool I've got and it's the tool I'm used to. I also like that because as an art director, I spend for a magazine, I spend an enormous amount of time in InDesign, which is how I lay out the magazine and it's how I lay out my books. So because those are made by the same company, Adobe, it's just easy to move things back and forth. But I miss the tactile feeling of drawing on paper, which I don't get to do very often anymore.
Do you have any tips and tricks for working in Illustrator? Like, are you using different layers? How is your...
Yeah, I use different layers a lot. Layers are your friend because when you make mistakes, you can just delete. And like there, I had my layer of my and I'm just going to be like, here's why Illustrator is great. So like my head is kind of it's like too far forward. I can just kind of go like that and just move it around. That's time for panel one. And like you can't do that when you work by hand. Like you have to erase and you can't really, the erase marks you can see them and it's tough for editing. Okay, so my text one there is going to be, in the spring of 2020, isolation was imposed on all of us at once. And then panel two. So for this panel, I want you to think about what action did you take, or would you like, maybe you didn't take any action. Maybe you just like stayed in this lonely space and you didn't kind of know how to work your way out of it. Or maybe you did. Maybe you knew how to reach out to someone or call a friend, or you did something that helped. So this can be imaginary or something that you actually did. But this question is this panel is like, what action did you take or could you take? And what helped when you were feeling this way? So for me, I'm going to draw being here with all of you on Zoom. And I'm going to see if I can draw a lot of people in 5 minutes. Let's see if this is possible. Unlikely. If we have time at the end, I want to make sure we spend lots of time sharing because I really want to see your work and hear your stories. But if we have time, I may say, let's go back for 5 minutes and just clean anything up, add any details we want to add, maybe add color if we don't have time to at this stage. I'm definitely not going to have time to add color until the end. But some of you might be working in color right away, which is awesome. It's been funny being behind the scenes for 50 different artists, watching them make comics in 5 minutes, a panel, and realizing how much slower I work, which is okay. Everybody works at their own pace. Maybe you work really slow, maybe you work really fast, doesn't really matter. The point is just that you make something. think the one thing I wish I would have realized sooner is also that it's okay to feel frustrated when things don't come out the way you want. And that it doesn't mean it was a failure because you learned something from it. Maybe you don't know what you learned yet, but like over time, you just get better. And you might not even realize you're getting better until you look back at something you drew a month ago or a year ago or 3 years ago. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know how to draw the beard. And now I know I just make dots in the beard forms.
Do you have any tips for getting distances and proportions right while you draw?
Distances and proportions, no, it's torture. It's one of the reasons I like to draw digitally is because like I'll be like, oh, that head is too small, that head is too big, and then you can just adjust it. But I think it's mostly about, I like to look at photos when I draw. Like I'll sometimes put my iPad next to my computer and use a reference. Sometimes even like I take pictures of myself in weird positions. I think someone else mentioned this who was hosting, but I think a lot of cartoonist phones are full with really super weird, embarrassing pictures of them in weird positions because you might not like, it's like, how do I look when I'm jumping up and down? How do I look when I'm bending down to pick up a piece of paper? It's like all these things that you think you know how something looks and you realize there's so many elements that go into it. I think we're about to come up on time and I'm nowhere near done, which is okay.
This is a big question, but how long do you think it took you to find your style?
That is a really interesting question. I probably still haven't totally found it. It probably will continue to change. I think when I drew my first book, it was called Imagine Wanting Only This. I just drew in a way that made sense to me. I didn't think like, how do I want this book to look? Or how do I want to draw characters? How do I want to draw hair? How do I want to draw eyebrows? How do I want to draw anything really? I just drew because that's all I could do. Like the prospect of making a full book was so overwhelming. If I started thinking about style, I probably just never would have done it. And that's kind of part of how style emerges is like you realize you're comfortable drawing certain things, you're drawing a certain way, and then your style just forms around it. But then over time, you're like, I like it maybe when I draw, noses, and I like to draw square noses now. I used to draw round noses. Like certain things are just taste to your personal taste, and certain things you realize maybe there's like an argument or a point of view in the way that I draw. Like maybe something, if I want to draw something kind of silly, maybe I have to draw someone's face in a different shape than I would if I was drawing something really serious. So I think finding your style is hard. It takes forever, but it's also fun because it means you continue to evolve. After I draw this guy, I'm going to move on to the next panel, and I'm going to come back to this one at 5 times. And my text for this panel is, but each Friday, ... which I will finish in the last one. Okay, so for our last panel, this is sort of our conclusion panel. Now, like I kind of resist the idea of conclusions because, of course, like any piece, like the conversation we have in that piece continues on after the piece is finished. Like you don't want to lock things down. You want to open things up. You want to sort of gesture outward so that the reader has, can have their ideas and kind of interact with it. But here it's, think about anything else you want to say. Maybe a question you'd like to ask. Maybe you want to gesture towards the future. What do you hope for? What do you appreciate or feel grateful for? So for this panel, I'm going to say, in the last panel I said, but each Friday, and in this panel I'll say, it was as if all of you were here. And I'm drawing the hands for everyone in Friday Night Comics together. I'll take 5 minutes for this. I'd say that when I'm drawing, thinking through, if you watch like a cooking show, I watched a cooking show in a long time. I don't know if they still do it like this, but they have like they'll be like, okay, now put the roast in the oven for 2 hours. And then they'll be like, and here is the finished roast. And they'll like pull out a whole pre-made one from behind. I kind of feel like that's what I'm doing here because I have, the sketch beneath the drawing. But what really takes me the most time is figuring out what I'm going to draw and how I'm going to draw it. It's like the drawing takes a long time, but equal time and sometimes more time is figuring out what do I want to depict. And then it's like, okay, if I want to depict, 2 friends playing catch in the backyard or something like that, it's like, okay, so I know that's sort of like the subject, but then you things like point of view, you things like what kind of clothes are they going to wear? What does their hair look like? What's the weather? Is the weather important? Is the background important? Do I need to communicate like geography in this drawing? Do I need to communicate a particular mood? Am I going to draw them from overhead? What does that say if they draw them from overhead? What if I draw them from the side or from a distance or close up? So there are a lot of decisions to make. And I think the decisions that's really the hard part for me. And sometimes I won't draw something or I'll change drawing because I just can't do it. I can't get it right. Like speaking of drawing the kids in the backyard overhead, it's really hard for me to draw things from an aerial view because I just don't look at people from the top of their heads very often. So it's like, you have to think a whole new way about what the world looks like.
Kristen, can you think of a particular piece of art that has made you feel less lonely?
Oh, what a beautiful question. Most art, I think, has made me feel less lonely. I love that question. I think the thing about loneliness is that it serves a purpose. Like we feel lonely because we need each other to survive, and to thrive, and to build things and grow and learn. So when you're feeling lonely, it's just like feeling hungry or thirsty or tired. Your body's just telling you, whoa, something's wrong here. You got to fix it. And I think in that way, I think I really appreciate loneliness because it's telling me to make a change. And I think that's what art does too. It says you should look at the world differently than you have been, or from a different perspective. And that's, I think, a really great gift. If anybody else has a specific piece of art that has made them feel less lonely, I would love it if you put it in the chat so other people can see and so I can look at them later. Ooh, 19 seconds on this panel left. And let's take 5 more minutes, kind of go back, clean things up. Maybe you want to add some color. Maybe you drew something that looked really weird. Maybe you like that it looks weird and you want to keep it. Or maybe you're like, it's all confusing. I want to just redraw that real quick. You just kind of use this last 5 minutes however you want to. Go ahead and triple cheat and just change the color of my sketch here so that I can do some color in the time I have left. Color is something that is really, really hard for me. I know it's really not, I have so many artist friends who just like seem to get color. It makes so much sense to them and they can communicate so much in that color. And that is something I don't have. And it's just taken me a long time to figure out what is this color say when I put it next to this other color. So I like to do very simple color. Another thing that's a secret about the way I draw is that I don't understand shadows at all. My shadows are never realistic. It's never makes any sense for what any kind of light would be. But that's okay because comics aren't about what does something really look like. It's just about what does it feel like.
Kristen, going back to technical questions, what is your setup right now? Are you using a tablet?
Yeah, I'm using a Wacom Cintiq tablet, which I've had for 6 years. It is super scratched up on screen. It has seen me through 2.5 books and many, many issues of the Believer magazine. And it's still going strong. I know a lot of people draw on iPads. That's a really nice feeling if it's like a very glossy, nice thing to draw on. I don't draw on an iPad just because I can't have the whole Adobe suite on it, which is what I need for so much of my job. But the annoying thing about this tablet is that it is very cumbersome to carry around. So it's not like you can like, draw on like a cafe or something. Just about a minute left here. I'm going to do a lot of cleanup tomorrow on this. Normally it would take me a few hours to make a 3-panel comic. It's time. Take just like one more minute, and then I'm super excited to see what you made. So if you'd like to share, make sure your camera is on first so that we can see you when you want to share. And when you're selected, hit the raise your hand button, which is like next to your name if you go under participants. And then when you're selected, tell us your name and where your journey is from. One of the coolest things about being with you all this past year and a half is that we've had people joining from over 30 countries, which is so cool. How spread out we are, but we're all making the same thing. So this is a draft of my comment. So it says, in the spring of 2020, isolation was imposed on all of us at once, but each Friday it was as if all of you were here. I'll stop sharing. And then, like I said, if you want to share, raise your hand and someone from the Believer team will select you. Allison.
Quite done with it, but I'll share it anyways. So when I feel, well, now it's all red because of my notebook. When I feel most alone is usually late at night when I can't get to sleep. And so to sort of cheer myself up or distract myself from my loneliness, I start to just imagine all these different scenarios, like some certain things about maybe paths not taken. There was a point where I thought about,
Sorry.
Okay.
I hit a button, sorry. I accidentally hit a button.
It's all right. There are certain points where I think about, where I imagine paths not taken. There's a point where I thought about applying to grad school in Canterbury. So I have the cathedral here. And then sometimes I just imagine silly, imaginary scenarios, like being a witch or being an astronaut or space person or being a astronaut witch. And that usually helps me feel a little less alone. And
I love that.
Helps me drift
on. Middle of the night brain is like, will really get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you.
Katya.
I want to say before I share this that I am gutted that this is the last one for a while, because I think I've been doing this, well, most Friday nights, and I'm going to have to find something else to do.
I know. I'm so sad too. So Thank you so much for joining us so many times.
Anyway, without further ado, and I couldn't draw a comic to save my life a year ago, so you really helped me.
Oh, wow, you do so much.
So, mine is the first time I lived in the USA. I did a study abroad semester, and I lived in this huge tower block. And when classes ended, my roommates moved out. They left. And I had no car and no money, and they even took the Wi-Fi with them.
Oh, no.
It was miserable, and it was like 90 degrees outside, so it was the summer. I couldn't go outside. I was trapped. I felt completely trapped, like I'd been forgotten by the world. And then I relied on my best friend, Lauren. She had a car and she really looked after me. And we went on road trips and camping. And without her, I don't even want to think about what would have happened.
Oh, good job, Lauren. Also, Lauren's hair is amazing. I love the way you drew her hair.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, hi.
Hello, hi, Kristen. And I'm one of the ones who will really miss this as well. But
I've loved seeing you here every week.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm having a slight problem here. Okay, here it is. So this is a memory of being alone and sick back in 1993. That's a quick map of the United States, and it's showing I was 3,000 miles away from home in Cambridge getting sick. And then the next panel is basically what I'm remembering about sitting and waiting in an emergency room. And then the last panel is just saying, wishing for someone to take care of me.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And I love the way that like you kind of stretched out the country even. And it like looks even, it's like even like it suggests like it's even bigger than it's like it's as big as it felt to you, you know? I mean, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's how it felt.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Monique.
Kristen, yeah, I want to just very quickly mention that I'm so grateful for all these weekly classes that the Believer's been hosting and all the work that's gone into them. And so very similarly, I did something from last summer. There was 1 week in which my partner went home to just check in and spend some time with his family. And I was like, okay, that's cool. It's just a week. And then like nighttime would come after the workday, and I would sort of, it was as if the room filled itself with all these like little apparitions that were telling me like, dissociate, you know, here's this repressive memory from like 10 years ago. And so, and it's funny that you mentioned cooking shows earlier, because a thing that I would watch was cooking YouTube, and just sort of being very interested in watching things be made, sort of like what we're doing here. And so the last panel is just knowing that to sort of stay away from all of those things, there's too much to learn out there that I can't let fear stop me. So.
Oh, it's so great. And I love the way you drew the eyes and the glasses and everything is just perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monique. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, hello.
So she just got muted. There you go.
Cool. Am I unmuted now?
Yeah, you're good.
First off, thank you so much for these workshops. I'm not always able to join in person, but I also watch them later on.
You hosted such a beautiful one, so thank you to you.
Thanks. Anyways, I let's see. Hang on. Okay, here we go. I have like more stuff on the other side.
Oh my God, look at this.
But let's see, I'll just read it. So, oh no, I can't read my own writing. I used to go on endless night walks to escape my best friends, who were also my roommates, who were also dating. Anyways, okay, hang on. Let me see if I can angle this so that you can see. So that was the first panel. The alternative was laying in bed at night, sleepless. But close by, just down the hall, was a friend. And last panel is actually me here at the Believer Workshop, because actually they're able to join me right now. They're also on FaceTime, but I'm not sure if she's closer or further away. And so this is a shout out to Elijah, who is also in this room drawing with me. But she's always been, you know, an antidote to loneliness. So yeah.
What did you use to color it? It's so beautiful. What did you use for?
I am using knockoff Copics, so they're called Fine Colors. And I found them in a Chinese street market. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Elise.
Hi, Elise. Where are you joining us from?
Oh, I'm in Long Beach, California.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks again for the workshops, like everyone said, echoing the gratitude. I didn't draw a lot, but I wrote a lot, which was fun.
Will you read it to us? Only if you're comfortable. Will you read it to us?
Yeah, I'll read a little bit.
Okay.
The only thing I drew was like the first part about kind of like the setting and the circumstances. So it's like me next to a door crying. So that one says, I sat in the quietest space I could find and cried the hardest I'd ever cried. And then it basically goes into, it had been a 5-year journey of successes and what felt like failures. My mom was diagnosed with cancer 5 years before and only lived about 2 months of the 6 months she was given to live. So it kind of goes on to talk about like her last day when she made it home from the hospital, and like this moment where she felt the sun on her. And basically it kind of like drifted from feeling alone, or like it kind of made me think about like her last day. And basically I want to end it with like how that made me feel alone in a lot of ways, like not having a lot of support because being young and losing a parent, it's like hard to find community.
Yeah.
And then also kind of like, you know, not being able to talk about it with everybody, and also just missing like my person, which was my mom. So
Yeah.
so yeah, it was like really inspirational to just kind of sit and like write a lot. So
Well, I hope you finish the comic. I'm so sorry about your mom. I hope you finish the comic. What a beautiful tribute.
Yeah, it's really, yeah, it really helped me open up some parts. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for drawing with us.
Thank you.
Hi, Deirdre.
Hello. Hi. I have to confess that I have a very pandemic story. And I have to say that the last person who shared, I was very touched by what they said.
Yeah.
And I think their work was so profound. And coming after that is, you know, I have to say that what I have to say is probably pretty banal, but my experience was moving to New York City, getting a new job, which I was very excited about, waiting ages to get a visa to move to New York City, only to find, okay, so this is my comic. I folded it up so you could possibly see
amazing.
the spaces. I'm like extremely excited to get my new job. I've been invited to move to New York City. I want to see King Kong, absolutely. And I'm hearing this kind of USA, you know, this is all new to me. I haven't been to New York except as a tourist very briefly. I have no idea. I just want to embrace everything that's going to happen. So I start my first week of work and we go into lockdown.
Oh.
So I start my new job in New York City on a Monday, and on Friday, my boss says everybody has to work at home.
Mm.
So so I hope you can see that I've drawn a lock and a down. Because it was like, yeah, you know, go away. So then my final panel, which I hope is a bit of a kind of opening it up. Okay, so I've been told to work at home. Okay, but where is home? Does Airbnb count? And then I say, like, I don't know anyone in New York City, which is a place where there's millions of people, right? So it's like, I'm trying to draw the millions.
Yeah.
I didn't quite succeed, but you know, so how is that possible that I've now got myself in a position where I'm in a city of millions of people? I don't know anyone. We're in lockdown.
I mean, I also love the last face you drew is just absolutely the cutest face. I love it. Thank you so much.
This is just like the emoji gone, like, this is all
very sad
around that emoji.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for keeping me insane during this hard time.
Thank you. Heather, hi.
Hi, wow. I've never actually gotten chosen before, probably because I usually unraise my hand because I have some critters that can get squirrely around here. So this is my comic. I'll try to read it backwards on the screen, or at least that's what I'm saying. So my first panel says, a basement in Canada. That's a very poor attempt at the Canadian flag. Graduate school wasn't going well in so many ways. That's me in my basement at my desk working on something. There's sort of a halo of light from my laptop around me. Some books on the desk. Let's see here. I tried connecting I tried connecting with other international students. I tried seeing a graduate advisor buddy. And the graduate advisor buddy is saying, let's talk about organization. That wasn't the problem. And then the final panel is actually, this is my friend Jessie's kitchen. She was in my cohort, but she was also sort of a neighbor. She lived about, I don't know, 6 blocks away from me or so. And it says, eventually I found camaraderie in a small group of classmates who lived in the neighborhood. Baking and listening to CBC soothed me. And that is an extreme condensation of the situation. There's just so much more than that, but
it's hard to distill it down for sure. I love the perspective on that last panel. That was great. Like slightly overhead like that. So cool.
I am sort of a baby artist. Visual art, or well, at least handy visual art is not really my thing. I'm more. So,
oh my God!
These
Turn
workshops have been.
Wait, where did Lagia go?
Oh, sorry, somebody's still unmuted if they want to just mute themselves real quickly.
Anyway, I have found a lot about myself and my drawing style, I guess, in the last year. And also one of the things I've really appreciated about this is the fact that it's so fast that you don't really have time to mull over things that much, which is what I tend to do. But this is just like your first idea, you have to sort of run with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Heather. Teresa.
Hi. I'm going to join with everyone in thanking you and everyone at The Believer for creating such a beautiful thing, this community of people gathering every Friday. And so it's made me a lot less lonely, and I'm sure everyone would agree. Oh, I made a big mistake using a big paper, but this is my comic about loneliness. Sometimes I'll see a friend out and about and I'll yell out, hey, but they don't always see me. But thank goodness for CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. It's okay, they just didn't see you. You have friends, you didn't make them up, really.
Amazing title. I just love the way you do your sort of stark black and whites. It's just so beautiful.
But yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Teresa.
Oh, hi. Hi, it's so nice to see so many familiar faces.
Yeah, it's great to see you here, Millie. Huge comic, biggest comic.
Yeah, I went big. So I kind of just started writing, but the loneliest time is also a time that I felt very connected. So I went to a synagogue that is specific to a very specific sect of Greek Jews called Greek Romaniotes. And I met a woman, and she was talking about her family, and she moved here when she was 15. She was giving us the tour, and she was saying, Greeks are so warm and hospitable. They are so welcoming. She talked about her dad and how her dad didn't have a mean bone in his body. And then I kind of diverged from the prompt. But so the second panel is just, my dad didn't have that. And I didn't have that either, not about my dad, but just about extended family and family in general. And then the thing that made me feel more connected was a book that I got, and it was just a cookbook of the Jews of Greece. And it made me feel really connected and happy. So it's right over there. And that's the loneliness.
Another comic with very beautiful contrast. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let's go a little, since it's our last one, I want to hear from a few more people. Let's maybe do 3 more. We'll go a little long tonight.
Hi, this is my second one ever, so thank you. I found it late. Wow, it's hard to read backwards. So basically, when I was a little kid, I carpooled with the prettiest girl in my dance class, and she didn't talk to me, and her mom was kind of equally pretty, and she didn't talk to me. But the dad was pretty nice, but he always cranked the heat up, and I was always really hot, and I never told him how hot I was.
It's so hard when you're a kid to be like, hey, can you turn the heat off? Like, it feels impossible. I know that feeling so well. Oh, what a great moment.
Thank you.
Hi, Natalie.
Hello, I'm Natalie from Sacramento. I kind of went on the double-edged sword of technology, and I think it's interesting in some of the other comics, it's like how connection and loneliness are so close to each other. So I wrote about a time where after months of planning, my friend said she couldn't meet up with me and booked herself to tattoo all day instead. I'd like seen her posted online and was kind of bummed. And then I said the last straw was seeing that she went to New York with some of our friends immediately after. And so very old school, I wrote her a letter telling her how I felt. And then I kind of ran out of time on the last one, but I said, actually the last straw was coming home to my dog chewing up a handmade stuffed animal of mine. It was one of those moments where it was like one thing after another. I was like, no.
Oh, and the figure in the first panel is so good. And I also love like the stuffing coming out. It's like, it looks exactly like what it is. It's just like perfectly encapsulates that.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen.
So much,
Thank you for the
Natalie.
workshops.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I just want to say thank you. We've really enjoyed this the past year. My son Charlie has participated in most of them as well. But tonight he did not, but I did.
What do you mean by that? That I don't want to do it tonight?
He didn't want to do tonight. That's okay, honey. He's playing with clay instead right now.
That's okay.
On his face. But I'm a teacher, so mine was about loneliness. And at the beginning of the pandemic, we were all on Zoom, and I was the only one that was on camera, and I was speaking to the students, and you were getting nothing back. And then I was teaching in an empty classroom, and the doors to my classroom, just a very tough year and a half. But the silver lining is I am an art teacher. And people say, oh, that must be so much fun. But, you know, being a public school art teacher, you really don't get to just sit and do art.
Right.
You just don't have time. You're more of a teacher than an artist. But I have been able to do more art because I've been home more, and a lot of canoe trips on the lake. So a little bit of silver lining there.
Mommy?
So
nice. Stepping how to make a clay. How to make a clay mask. Do you want me to show you how?
Oh yeah, that's great. Actually, it's really good for your skin. That your mom would love that. Please make her a clay mask. Really.
This is how I make a clay mask.
Okay, quickly.
First, I gotta roll it up into a
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Then I have to flatten it.
Great technique.
And then what happens is I do this, and then I stretch it out.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
And that's your
fashionable, functional. Well done.
It was like
you say thank you for all the fun times.
Here is my.
Say thank you.
It's my mask.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all. If you don't, yeah, okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm gonna cut this off before I start uncontrollably crying. Cannot be seeing you all every Friday night. I want to say a couple of thank yous. Most of all to y'all who've been here every week, especially some of you who I think have really been to almost every one. It's meant absolutely, I can't even really express how much it's meant to me. I also want to say thank you so much to Kristen Radtke and Layla Muhammad, my coworkers who've been here on Zoom patrol, making sure everything is safe for everyone, managing the tech problems when some of y'all couldn't get in at the beginning. And most of all to Lily Allen, who has really helped me make this happen, to make sure you got your invitations, all that stuff. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. And I if this has meant something to you, if you've had fun with this, please keep making comics, and subscribe to The Believer, so we can keep making stuff like this. And maybe we'll do a couple of these in the fall so we can all see each other again. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. These were amazing.
Thank you.
Thank
Really good.
you.
Everyone.
Thank
you.
I'll miss you all.
Bye.
Thanks, Amber.